In order, and I will ask Marcine to call the roll.
Tanya Fairley.
Present.
Megan Ellis.
Present. Sorry.
Reese Isbell.
Present.
Yolanda Jimenez.
Present.
Derek Matos.
Present.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. We have in our packets the minutes from our last meeting. Do I have a motion to approve? Do I have a motion to second?
I have one technical change. Second page of the minutes, the third paragraph or so, last sentence. A lot of education has been done through the board meetings and COVID outreach to remind, not reminder. And then I just had a question also on the page 4 at the top. I mentioned if there were any videos available. Did we receive those?
Yeah, I sent those in the email with the materials for this meeting.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Reese, what was the first item?
There was just a,
It was a misspell. It was the wrong word, version of the word remind. Reminder?
On where, on what page? I'm sorry, you said it really fast.
Second.
I moved to,
It's in the third full paragraph, the last sentence. A lot of education has been done through the board meetings and COVID outreach to remind licensees.
Oh, okay.
So the motion would just include that small technical amendment.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes with the minor technical change?
second.
Second.
Do we have any public comments?
Tanya Fairley. Megan Ellis.
Yes.
Reese Isbell.
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez.
Yes.
And Derek Matos.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item agenda 3. I will turn over to Christy to discuss the next item.
All right, so this was requested at our last committee meeting. This is a lot of information we're bringing forward to you all, and I'm going to kind of go through it briefly. What we wanted to show you was the information that we provide at different steps of our processes. So if you look under agenda item number 3, you'll see when we issue an establishment license, and then we've provided all of the information that goes along with an establishment. So it's the message to the consumer, the owners must know this, is that gender-based discrimination policy, a self-inspection worksheet, the most common violations cited during an inspection, and then the schedule of administrative fines. With our renewal issuance, we provide the information from the governor regarding the fee relief. The governor waived fees for 2 years, so there's a handout that goes with all renewal licenses. And then we've provided all that information in your packet. And if you go to the separation of the blue page, the next section is our inspection materials. So this is information that is handed out during an inspection. And these can vary. It might depend, we're not going to obviously give information on foot spas to a salon that's only doing hair. So it depends on what the circumstances are, but we wanted to at least provide you all with, show you what we do. Again, we always give our self-inspection worksheet out. We think it's the best. Our most common violations, we have a disinfection fact sheet. We have our illegal tools. We have our foot spa cleaning guide. Again, we would hand this out to someone with foot spas. We have our sample and instructions for the foot spa log, which is, of course, a separate requirement. Aside from the cleaning, then you have to log all the information. We have our message to the consumer. We'll hand this out if we see that they don't have it posted. We have our gender-based discrimination information that we're required to hand out. We have the Department of Industrial Relations required posting notice, and then we also have how to become an apprentice information. It's, we do get that question a lot in the field, so we have that for our inspectors to hand out as well. And then moving to the next blue page, we have our citations. And we wanted to show this because of the type of education we provide when somebody gets a citation. So most citations don't look like this, because if you turn in a couple pages where it has starts the citation with the number up at the top, what we try to do is every time there's a violation, listed in red is what we actually found. So one of the things we found is that our regulations can be not sometimes the clearest to the average person. Like, we read them every day, so we're used to the legal language of it. So we've tried to make our citations be as clear as possible so that somebody could read this and know what they're getting cited for. So a good example is the one that says the restroom shall be kept in a clean condition and in good repair. No restroom shall be used for storage. Remove all the stored items from the restroom. So we're telling them this is what you need to do. Now, they probably already did it because the inspector probably told them that as well. But we want to try to tell people as much as we can when they're getting a citation. So what we did was we provided various samples for each violation. Again, this wouldn't normally happen, but we wanted to just show you some of the red language. The red is a drop down for each of our staff when they're issuing citations, that they can select which scenario fits so that the licensee is getting the appropriate information. And they can be long, but they're not usually that long. Okay, so after the next blue page, we have our enforcement case correspondence materials. This is very specific to the type of case we would receive. So again, these aren't usually they're not going out all at once. So it's the enforcement analyst, when they are working a case, they will determine if it's about lashes, then they're going to send a lash information. If we've cited somebody with a hyaluron pen, we're going to send that information directly to them. So it's very specified to what they're working on. But we wanted to show all the information to you as well. Again, there's our beautiful checklist. We do like it. And the industry loves that checklist as well. We take it to all their trade shows that we do, and it's the one thing that people will ask if they can just take stacks of it, because they'll make all their staff use it. So we have excerpts from the law, our administrative fine schedule, and then I won't go through each one of them, but you can see that we have various industry bulletins that we would send out. Again, they would be specific to the type of case that analyst is working on. All right. And there's quite a few of those. And then lastly, I'm missing my blue page here. We have our, I guess there was not after the foot spa checklist, we have our petition for reinstatement of a revoked license. That's kind of what brought up some of this conversation, is we had a hearing and about the type of information that we provide to our individuals that are asking for a reinstatement of their license. So this is the information that is on our website, I believe, that gets sent out to, or that they can look at and determine how they go about asking for that hearing for a reinstatement. Is what?
It's good
Oh, thank you.
compared to other boards.
So that is a lot of information. We're certainly always feel there's room for improvement, and keeping in mind that the people you see sitting on this side of the room have all been around for a very long time, so it's also always good to have fresh eyes. So if there is anything you see that maybe can, we're ready.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a couple questions and comments. First, a specific question, which will lead to a larger discussion. On the owners must know this page from early in the first blue section, at the bottom it says information is available on the website in English, Vietnamese, Spanish, and Korean. I'm wondering if that can be written on it in those languages so that anyone using those languages would be able to see, rather than reading the English, that they need to go to the website?
We don't do that right now?
We don't have it on this page here,
Okay.
but when the analysts send out letters, that information is on the bottom of every letter that we send out.
Right.
But, so we can add something similar to this. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
And just real quick also, I didn't mention that on our citations, it's been determined that, I want to say we have 110,000 manicurists in California. And it's been determined that about 95% are Vietnamese speaking. So when we have a manicurist citation or a salon that had manicuring violations, those automatically go in English and Vietnamese.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, this specific item leads to that larger conversation I was just going to raise about translation or information in other languages, and how all of this information you put in the book here is available to others. And that's a question generally.
Anything on our website is translated, correct, Marcine? So any of our information that we post on our website, which is most of this information, is translated into all the languages that we provide our exams in. We do have our laws and regulations, our health and safety regulations. We have added some additional languages just because we're seeing them growing. I believe we've added Farsi and Arabic and Chinese in the laws and regulations. We don't give our exams in those, but we've seen that population growing, so we thought, why not? Let's give them the health and safety regulations in their languages. Everything that we send out has a note on the bottom of it that if they need assistance, that they can contact us. So we do that as well.
Is that in various languages or just in English?
Any language.
No, I mean at the bottom of the paper.
So can I speak to that too, just for a second? So I know that the new students that are coming through and the young adults that are coming through public education, especially with the interruption with COVID, all of our students have been shown when a web page is up, they change the language of the web page into their first language or their reading language. So more young adults are coming through and knowing how to translate for themselves. They showed me all of everything that they're reading on the screen is now in their first language. So as long as they have a younger person in their household, they can be shown how to toggle that little button at the top. And then, so we won't have to do as much translating on our end because the translation technology is there and it's available for them now.
I hear that. My concern is more about our hard copy papers that reference the website. The times that we mention our website is in other languages. We should probably use the other languages to say that you can go to the website to get this kind of information, especially for monolingual of other languages as well. And then on a similar specific note, on the 2 pages that do not use these tools, I was wondering if we ever thought about using the international no symbol in some capacity.
We have not, but we'd be happy to.
I just think that it might be a little clearer for those who are getting this piece of paper.
We have this translated, Marcine? Yeah, we do offer this translated as well.
Sure, but I'm just
Yes.
saying the picture of the items, I'm just thinking the international no symbol in some form on that page or something
Okay.
would help illustrate that.
Sure.
Thank you.
I have a question on enforcement when it comes to the gender-based discrimination policy. And we've had this discussion throughout my various business partners. How is this enforced? How is this enforced? Is it enforced? And if it is not, is this something that is being looked at to being enforced?
So I believe there was a law that was passed that required us to hand it out. We don't cite for this though, do we? But didn't give us authority to cite for it, but requires us to hand it out. So you see that this is not our form.
Right.
This was required to be done by the Department of Consumer Affairs, who did it for us, and we just hand it out.
So there's really no enforcement in regards to a salon has services listed, male
true. Is that the one agency
haircuts,
that
female haircuts.
Does that?
Yeah, Fair Employment and Housing Agency would be the one that would regulate whether or not you are providing services for different prices depending on gender. We're only required to provide this information to the establishments, but they are the regulating authority of the law.
We've seen some cases, very few. I want to say maybe I've seen 2 or heard of 2 in my time here, where there was a lawsuit, I believe, about this. It's been a while because there's no requirement for anybody to tell us if there's a lawsuit. So we don't know that this is being enforced or not. Usually, I would assume it might be complaint-based.
Do we have any more questions or comments on this?
I do have one question. I know, speaking of the pages related to the fines, I know we're updating fines. How and when does that become updated based upon the other committee's work and the board?
So the fines are set in regulation, so it will have to go through the regulatory process, and then once that process finishes, then we update our forms.
Okay. Thank you.
I just have a question. First, I want to say thank you so much for putting this packet together. It's incredibly informative and it's a lot of information, so I know it probably took a lot of time, so thank you so much, DCA team. My question, the form that I found most helpful was the self-inspection sheet. And that was very cool. It kind of reminds me, I'm doing an auditing course, so it reminds me of the sort of the self-checklist that they have for performing an annual audit. When you say hand out, how do you hand these out to folks?
So the inspectors hand them out when they're doing inspections. We hand them out during trade shows. And it's also sent with the first time you ever get a license, it's on there as well. It's also on our website. I believe it's one of our most commonly clicked on documents.
Wonderful, thank you so much.
Just to add, I believe the last time we had a renewal, it was sent as well. So when you renew your license, it often shows as well.
We also really
Get that checklist.
Yeah, and we promoted it a lot during COVID because we weren't really inspecting during COVID, but we thought, well, what a great time to clean your shop and make sure when everybody comes back. So when we were trying to get salons ready to come back, we were handing out a lot of self-inspection sheets, like now's your chance, great timing to get out, make sure all this is done, so. Any questions? All right. Oh, I did want to point out on the actual citation, if I could find it in here. And sorry, we went back and forth on the best ways to show these to you all. There was so much, we were trying to keep them separated. But on, and I can't find it at all. Can you just?
On the last page of the citation, Reese, at the bottom, under where it has the fine amounts, it says, if you need assistance in interpreting the citation, please call Cite and Fine Unit, and it's in all 4 languages.
It's
So
next to
that's
the
an
blue.
example of what we put on our letters. I think that's what you were asking for on the
Yeah, on the owner's thing,
information.
yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, that's exactly.
I will toot our horn a little bit, that we are one of the most, our board, I believe, has taken the language access to more levels than any other board, I think. Because we're barbering and cosmetology, so we cover everything, so, and it's super helpful when we're at trade shows and we can hand something out in Vietnamese or Spanish when, we have such high volumes of those speaking those languages, so toot toot.
Yeah, no, I think that this is great. I appreciate the background information as well. And that example that you mentioned on the citation is exactly what I was thinking about for any or other pages where we're similarly saying you can get more information in other languages, just utilizing the language so that they can read it. Thank you.
And I should say also that we track the languages because we offer the exams in Spanish and Korean and Vietnamese, but we also allow anybody to bring an interpreter from any other language, and we track those languages, and that's how we monitor the rising of different languages, where we see a lot of, we saw that Farsi was getting really high, so we thought, let's try to provide more information in that language. So we track all of that, and we're always coming up with new items for this packet of information, because there's always something new that we need to address. So when new items come up, we'll make like an industry bulletin to get more information out to the industry.
Christy, how are industry bulletins delivered? I saw it was via email address, but not all licensees necessarily have the original email address that they applied with.
Usually it's something we do on social media, or we have a section on our website for industry bulletins, and then when we attend trade shows, we will usually hand them out. Especially when it's a hot topic, we'll take them to trade shows, and that's kind of been our biggest source of getting that information out, because usually we have an industry bulletin on a tool that's illegal being sold behind us at a trade show. So trade shows have been
That's all the
definitely, yeah. They're a big thing for us to hand those out.
Similarly, you mentioned social media. I'm wondering about translation on social media or different languages. Do we have any relations to that, or do we post different languages on our social media?
We do.
There's
We
no
did
need
a
to do
lot,
that,
I
though.
believe, during COVID, for sure. We did a lot of different languages. So yes, we do. We probably need to look at,
There's no
doing-
need to do that, though. I mean, every device has a translator. All the distributors that come in to sell me stuff in the store, they have their phone set to the translation for whatever it is that they are doing it. So sometimes I think we make too much work as far as like paper, as far as when we have the tools already there available to, because everybody's on their phone. Every single translation you need is on your,
Right.
on your device.
yeah.
I understand
Not to take
that.
away from what you were saying, but I'm just saying, like, it's easier, like, if everyone has that ability to get everything in their language with the devices that they're using.
And just to
Including closed captioning.
Go ahead.
In that
Including
language.
closed captioning, yeah.
Reese, to your point, thank you for bringing that up. But typically when you set up your social media account, if you speak in a certain language, that's how it's set up in. If I'm a Spanish speaker, then my account, everything on my Facebook page would reflect in Spanish. So if I'm looking at the board website or what have you, or their post, it would also be translated in that language as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not saying that these things aren't possible. I'm just raising the question of what we do, and promoting the concept of the necessity to be cognizant that a lot of our public speak different languages and come from different cultures. And on that note, I was wondering if we also utilize other social media that are in other languages, like WeChat from China. I'm just curious, are we on any of those other types of social media?
So Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Okay. I just raised that because I know, for instance, in San Francisco, folks in Chinatown and the Asian American community all communicate with each other on WeChat, which is a unique thing within our city. And I was just thinking through if there are other types of media ways that are communicated within communities, if we've looked at that kind of thing before. I'm not necessarily saying we need to do WeChat, I'm just bringing up the issue of that there are other concepts as well.
Chrissy, also, I wanted to bring up, I made my note here. I noticed, because I went through, when I got this, I was like, let me go to the board's website, and even though I know that we didn't have to pay for our renewal, do you think that it's possible now, with the way 98% of the world is on social media, when we go to renew our licensing, even the establishment license, that we ask for updated email address? Because if I'm being completely honest, when my license comes in the mail, that's all I look at, right? So, like, I'm not trying to be funny or anything like that, but as a business owner of several businesses and training and all this stuff, right? So I get the need for sending the paper out. But I can almost guarantee you, and I watched this year, I watched my stylists when they opened up their envelope. I mean, if I'm the only one, they literally took their license out and everything else went in the trash. And I said, wait, get your check, wait, get your, right? So if social media is the way that we are communicating 90% of the world right now, it seems like we can make that one little piece a mandatory piece. Like, you have to have an email address so that we can deliver.
We would have to require it. It's not required, so emails are an option. So it would have to either be in our statute or our regulations that we require an email address. I don't know if there's other boards. Do you know of any other boards that require email addresses? I think,
Breeze.
well,
Well, I mean,
we
Well,
have a,
whoever we do even if we use Breeze, like, is there a way, well, we're not using, we are,
and if somebody goes online and renews their license or applies for a
It's
license, then
optional.
we get their email address for sure. But if they,
optional though on Breeze.
is it optional?
It's
Oh,
optional.
okay.
That's what I'm saying. So we take that from being optional to like, I know with me, in order to book an appointment with me, it's required.
Right.
You cannot book an appointment without giving me an email address because I'm not calling you.
And I think the issue is, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not required in our law.
It's not required in our law, and we do have a population that does not have email addresses.
We have a large population that is still paper,
Yeah.
large.
have the issue of it changing or bouncing or having.
However, what we do is we try to get as many, again, going back to our trade shows, which we haven't had in a couple years, but the trade shows, we always, anything we do, we're trying to promote people to get on our interested parties list or to give us their email address so that we can communicate more with emails. I can tell you, we just talked about this morning, we have about 270,000 emails in our system, over 610,000 licensees. Almost half.
We're working at it. And I think to your point, that's a great suggestion and solution, of course, is at these events that we're now in person with everybody is just another additive to that, promoting the good reasons why. The discussion, especially during COVID, a lot of people may have complained about not being informed, and I think
Yes.
staff and the board has done a great job at recognizing some of those things, making those additions to Breeze, to the website and so forth, and this is probably just another part of that. And now in person, to add to your banner of items
Things
that
to do.
are illegal, is, want more info, send your email address.
You can thank Marcine. She makes it her mission at every trade show we go to that she has a clipboard and gets people's email addresses. So it's become huge to what it used to be, but there's
I'm
still.
all about, like I work hard, but I work less. So it just seems like, you know what I mean? Like you guys do such a great job at making sure that, we're updated. You don't want this information to go to waste. And even accessibility, making it easy to access questions, going to the webpage and typing in sew and weaves and it coming up. That's not working correctly yet, but it's getting there. I could see we made progress. Because every time someone calls and says, Tanya, what is it? Go to the website, type in the keyword and let it pull up. And then after I did that a couple times, I tried. I was like, oh, this isn't, but
It's a lot better.
it's a lot better. Trust me, it's a lot better. So the appreciation is definitely there. I just feel like I said, social media is how we're going, and it's pretty hard nowadays to make appointments places without having an email address or a phone number. They don't even care about an address anymore.
Yep.
Like you don't even have to have a physical address, but give me your email
Right.
and your phone number. You can't do online banking without it. So I'm pretty certain 99% of people have an accessible email address. It's just a matter of getting that information.
Possibly a suggestion you just made a great point too, is telephone numbers. Now we can do direct text, so if we have telephone numbers in our database, that's very easy to do. This is,
Like send out the industry bulletin update, telephone numbers, shh, everybody has it right there, right? It's all about, see, that was a good idea, huh? But I think that there's so much power in our hands with social media and the things that we do. I sent out a mass text to 4,000 people because we were going to be closing on a day that normally we don't close. And I didn't get one rejected response. And it went out in 30 seconds, right? So with everything that we have in our toolbox, it just seems that we can reach a little bit more if we kind of think outside the box, and especially on the education side. I feel like a lot of salons are behind because, and I had to take a look at myself in my salon when I saw me open up my renewal and take out my license and trash the other part, because I knew what was in there. One, I knew that it was a checklist, but I didn't think of, is there anything new? I didn't think of that. Right. That's what made me write the note of, wait a minute, like, okay, I did this, and if I did this, how many other establishments or licensees? And then I watched my other licensees do the exact same thing, and I was like, So, and ignorance of the law is not, you can't say you didn't know, but.
Well, we could look actually at doing more email blasts, even targeted. We did that during COVID, so we, working with different counties, we would target people in certain counties with information. So
Email and telephone, like Derek said, like you can do a telephone blast.
I don't know how to do that, but we will look into it.
There's, and again, everybody's budget is their budget, but sometimes it's cheaper than paper. Well, it is cheaper than paper.
Right.
I think this, I'm sorry, not to speak over. but
No,
I think
you're
the-
good,
I
please.
think the state saves a tremendous amount of money by converting less paper into these digital platforms.
Yes.
Text message and email blasts and so forth and so on, so. It's
Yeah, and we would love to do that as well.
I know the DMV right now is running a campaign on get your license renewal or car registration, do it digitally.
And it's all digital.
But also most importantly, it's all opt-in. So it's,
Right.
you know, you can still get paper if you prefer paper, but you can also get the information digitally as well.
And being such on an educational learning curve, I think that a lot of times people look for things that they can have right at hand, right? So, like I said, being able to go to the website and pull up and search is just as convenient as, oh, a new update come out on what tools not to use, and that's sent out to everyone. Guess what? It's right there. And most people keep that, and we go scroll like, wait a minute, State Board sent me something. Let me pull that up, or let me go to the website. So I think if we're really trying to move money from one Peter to another Paul and just, you know, be efficient with the growth on the education side, these are some of the things that we can definitely.
I believe it just clicked in my head. I think there's one other board, at least that I know of, that has their own app.
See, I have, my salon have my own app. You guys definitely should have your own app.
I had to put in for that to our
Yes.
IT department,
Yeah.
and it, because we're also at the mercy of our
Right.
IT folks,
Right.
but I think that could be something we could look into as well.
There's a lot of third-party providers nowadays. The cost is tremendously low in comparison to what it's been. And I think given the fact that with the removal of some of the components, we've saved quite a bit of money this past couple of years. It'll definitely be investable. Thank you.
So we will look into phone blasts, we'll look into having our own app, and we'll look into increasing social media. I love the idea of looking at other things than the three we kind of know.
Well,
That girl at the end knows, the young one knows.
Them millennials, man, I love them because they'll come up to me. I didn't even know I can take Apple Pay in one of my programs. And seriously, like I didn't think that far out. And then one of the little kids goes, Miss Tanya, you have Apple Pay. I'm like, where's the sign? Where's the little signal that tells me that? You know what I mean? So
Yes.
yeah, this.
I really appreciate this discussion. I think it's very helpful to be thinking through new modes of communication for our Education and Outreach Committee work. And so I think that as we continue to consider other options like an app, which is a great idea, or other modes of communication, I'm glad that we're open to those kinds of things. I also don't want to lose necessarily the concept of snail mail for those who still use and are not technically gifted and so forth. So I don't want to lose sight of that either.
For sure.
It's our job. It's our job to be the communicator to these folks. And so in a variety of ways that we can communicate, we're not an English-only state, you know, we have a responsibility to speak out in a variety of ways, and whether that means getting a TikTok or whether it means, you know, finding a new way, a new language that we need to translate into. I appreciate that we're all thinking about that. Thank you.
We
And
did just
TikTok.
talk about TikTok.
I was just going to say, that was a good thing to bring up because DCA, I mean, we should be all over, girl, you should be all over that TikTok.
Probably 2 weeks ago, we just had a discussion about how can we get on TikTok and what we can
One of
do.
my notes that I wrote was one of the things that I think is a good idea for TikTok is every time there's a bulletin update, like the one for the PSP, that would be a great one because personal service permits, and I can talk about the African American community where we're really big in the braiding and the natural hairstyles. That's where you're going to find 90% of those stylists in that community of TikTok, getting that information to them. I can tell you that as a multicultural stylist, there's a lot of things that I missed on the industry bulletins because the information or the wording was not. I don't think you were speaking to us. I think you were speaking in a general language that African-American women or braiders don't use, right? So it created an issue when I'm trying to educate others on where to find this information and how to get that. So that would be my only suggestion too, is when you're talking about the natural hairstyles and the, getting that information out there, that you're using the terms that are actually used in the industry and not ones that are used by the governing board, because it's different. So it was like, goes back to Yolanda when we had our last meeting, and she said, the guy, the one of the ones that we reviewed, that he didn't understand what you were saying. That is one of the, I think, as a committee, that we have to really be cognizant of, is that we're speaking a language that everyone could understand, but if it's directed towards a group of people, that it's definitely more,
That it hits the audience.
it hits the, that you're the
Right.
target audience, because, and I think you and I may have had a brief discussion about what is weave, right?
Right,
So weave in a multicultural salon is highlights, so we call that weave. But in an African-American community, a weave is a sew-in, it could be a so understanding the dynamics of the language when it comes to education and getting out there and putting that information out there so that you're getting the target audience.
I think that's exactly where we need to be going. Same with how I've felt our regulations are too governmental, that when you translate them, it makes it even worse. We had a Vietnamese board member who we translate everything, and we use a contractor to translate all of our information. It's a statewide contractor. And when we translated something into Vietnamese that we thought was perfect, she explained to me that we were saying the consumer notice has to be posted in your reception area, but the way it was translated was your consumer notice needs to be posted in your living room. But it wasn't, the translation was fine, but the interpretation was like, you're telling me to put this in my living room because and she had a hard time coming up with a way to say like reception area, because it's not what they call it in that setting. So it was really interesting, and I think that's something that we often miss the mark on with, because it's so governmental.
And I think that's a good thing, that even for this part, because education and outreach, who are you educating and outreaching to, right? And so our whole job is to protect the consumer, but yet we're giving the licensing the wrong direction. So not that, again, and I'll say this, not that that's an excuse not to do what you're supposed to do, but I think the reality of it, even as me, I need stuff just plain as day. I don't want to go pull out a dictionary to figure out what you're trying to say to me, and sometimes it can get that way, so.
Yeah, and on that note of being culturally competent and cognizant, like you said, related to, you have a state contractor for translation, we may find that there are also other cultural competency contractors for different communities. If we were specifically trying to target a specific community, for instance, in San Francisco within the LGBT community, there's a lot of language and such that is used in the health department that is more specific to the community outreach, that is not medical language per se. And so I'm not saying we need to have a targeted thing for the LGBT community right now. My point is that larger concept of that there are ways of reaching out through cultural competency for communities that we're specifically trying to reach.
And also, speaking of education, part of what we had discussed during the reinstatement discussion, I know that we're limited in that we cannot recommend specific remedial courses because that would fall under the jurisdiction of BPP, right?
The board can recommend remedial education to a petitioner who's looking to be reconsidered.
But we can't recommend specific courses, or
You don't have any.
that's where our limitation stops, right?
Are you talking about when the board issues its decision? That would be one of the optional terms, should there be a need. For example, if there's a practice violation, maybe it's disinfecting
Right.
or something like that, or in other boards' boundaries or something like that. You would put that in your decision about a certain amount of hours or units of that kind of education. That would be in your decision, though.
So we couldn't so in the petition packet, we couldn't say prior to,
Right. We can't tell them ahead of time, like, go take some courses in this and that to show the board you've rehabilitated. We wouldn't have the authority to do that. But the board could make it as a condition of their probation.
Right. But there's a list of the recommendations in that petition reinstatement letter
Right.
and examples of what might be something they could bring. I mean, this letter, I have to tell you, is very good and it's very descriptive, especially compared to some other boards.
I think reading the letter, though, it's, the audience that this letter is reaching is above my head. So when I was going through that, I was like, I could understand why someone who does not have past a 10th grade education struggles with what is needed to be done with getting this.
We can look at that.
it's,
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, it's the word rehabilitation is the one I keep getting hung up on. And and I know that's a tricky one because I know there are certain language that we have to include. I wish we could just put in a line that says, please just go take a couple of remedial courses.
And those documents are something really easy for staff to take another look at and just, see what more plain language
Yeah.
we can use and not the legalese. Or if we have to use the legalese, then have an explanation about
Right.
what that really means. And that's an easy
Yeah, we can definitely
task
do
for
that.
staff as I volunteer them to do things.
And that's, and
I
I
can
think,
help too.
and I think from my whole point is that, look, we're all here to protect the consumer, but we got to give the licensee something to work with, right? In that whole,
I totally agree.
in that whole thing. And I'm all about protecting the consumer and helping the licensee.
Because I think
Because
that-
I'm a licensee.
I think licensees, in some cases, will just keep providing the services, but if they've at least had that remedial education, we can know that with some certainty, that they've at least made an effort.
Well, it's not like there's other states that require CTEs, right? I mean,
Right.
consumer. And, I think we've tossed this back and forth and talked about this before, because that would be the caveat of refreshing your memory and all that stuff. The reality of it is that who wants to do the CTEs
Right.
and try to enforce that? So it definitely is, if there's an issue, the steps that are provided are very fair, right? You got to do this, show up and show us what you've done in the process to take matters in your own hand to protect the consumer and do what you're supposed to do, so.
Right.
Just on this note of education, I'm wondering if we have, like, for instance, in elections, they have a ballot simplification committee that makes all of their language at like a fifth grade level or something like that. Do we have anything that we do in relation to utilizing a lower education level in our communications rather than some of our technical terms?
Readability. You're looking for the term lower readability level.
Readability, yeah.
We do not, but that's something we could definitely look at.
Yeah, I would say, I'm just thinking of the elections department and how they do it, but I'm sure there's many other departments that also look into readability, thank you, for different levels. So it's not all medical terms or what have you.
Yeah, and the staff, you've seen them diligently taking notes, but they will work on all of these things, and I can assist too, and if we have to translate any of that legalese, we can definitely do that, and we can bring it back. I'm sure it'll be on your next agenda.
And I just think that's a great point, because we just realized that it says that 10th grade education is all that's required. So we got to kind of scale back a little bit to look at the target audience and make things better for the consumer. This is great discussion. Agenda item 4, and I will turn that over. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, there's for this one? Oh, see, you missed that, Christy. I think I missed that. We will now. We will now, at this time, we will now open to public comment on any items not on the. Oh, on this one, number 3. Christy done led me astray. It's not, public comment for this particular agenda item number 3.
Number 3, yeah. I'm Jamie Schrabeck, Precision Nails, and I had 3 comments about the packet. Just a little side note, this is a huge improvement over the poster we used to have to post in our, so I would like to see something similar for the issue of the gender-based price discrimination, because the lead is getting buried. This is more about the posting requirements than the actual policy. And thinking about this new legislation with the human trafficking, I think that's a similar situation. I would ask, well, first of all, as a consumer, I would think I would go to the DCA if I had a complaint. If I were being charged a different price, I wouldn't necessarily realize that that's a civil rights issue, and I would need to go to the Department of Fair Employment and Housing. So sort of a disconnect, I think, for consumers to understand who they would complain to if they encountered that, or even if it were just advertised, because even the advertising of it is something that's problematic. So this definitely needs cleanup the way it's written. It doesn't even apply to all BBC licensed establishments. So going back to your suggestion of a resolution, if we were ever to approach this, Happy Pride Month, I would look at this and say, this needs to be rewritten. We need to revisit this law that was written back in 1995 that applies to all industries, but definitely impacts us primarily because we often see pricing based on gender. It just happens over and over again. I don't know why schools can't enforce that with their students. So there is that. More troublesome for me is this workplace posting requirement that dates to 2018, I believe. There's no mention of AB 5 because it's not been updated. There's no mention of SB 490 because that's not included here either. That's problematic because I do not want, although I already have, establishment owners pointing to this and saying, I'm following the law. You're not following the law. So this workplace posting is not current to our current employment and labor laws right now. And then the third thing I wanted to understand, and I don't expect an answer right now, the difference between things that we call an industry bulletin and a fact sheet. Because other than typing in a search term and trying to find things on the website, all this stuff is really buried on the website itself. And I know that we just gave some examples, or there's some examples here of industry bulletins, but I know that there are other things that are called fact sheets, and I'm not sure what rises to the level of being called a fact sheet versus an industry bulletin. And I'll be back for agenda item number 4. Thank you. I'll just stay here.
Thank you. I will turn over agenda item number 4 to Christy.
All right, agenda item number 4 is a review and discussion of just our recent and upcoming outreach events that we have going on. We have what we call our campaigns. We work with the Department of Consumer Affairs Public Information Office, who has been helping us with this. We're trying to get the word out for personal service permits, and we are working on doing some videos for that to post on our YouTube channel. We do have a YouTube channel. And Safe Sandal Season is something we try to promote at spring, summer, every year. We have in the past been invited to do live TV. Maybe there's more important things happening in the news these days, but we haven't made it that far yet, but we're still pushing for that as well. So hopefully we'll get that. Recent events that we have done, we've had 2 school overviews for the exam that we're launching July 1. So we did 2 basic kind of town hall meetings and given schools an overview of the content of what's on the examination. It's something that we do annually with any exam vendor, and this just so happens to be our first one with the PSI exam vendor. Those went really, really well. We had lots of questions that we were able to answer, and everybody seemed really happy about the responses that they were able to receive on those town halls. We did a Southern California beauty and barbering, I think, professionals and students. It was an event down in Anaheim that Marcine and I did. I spoke for about almost an hour, and then we had a booth in the reception type area. The self-inspection sheet was our top giveaway, and then we also gave away the new, what we call candidate information bulletins it's the information on exams, because it was a student show. So it was predominantly students and instructors and school owners, and that was very successful show that we did. And then we did a virtual senior rally. This is usually something that we do on the lawn of the Capitol, where we have a table and just provide information about the board and safety to consumers. This year it was done virtually, so it wasn't, it's a little different to do it virtually, but we still were participating in that. And they had over 400 registered attendees. I recently did a podcast for the hair games. I don't think it's been aired yet, but it should be soon. It was with Eric Taylor, who has this podcast it's a national podcast, and we talked about the personal service permit and changes, talked about SB 803 and changes happening in the industry. And then we have our upcoming events, which is the International Salon and Spa Expo in Long Beach. That will be June 25th through 26th. And then we also have the Face and Body Skincare Show, and combined with Nail Pro Show this year in San Jose. So hopefully there's a lot of attendance at both those shows. It'll be the first time shows have been back in quite some time. So hopefully we get a lot of people at our table. We usually are very popular. That's it. Any comments or questions?
I have a question about the PSP campaign. It says that one is specific to consumers and the other to licensing. Can you kind of give an insight on what that looks like?
So we really want to try to reach consumers who are either going to someone's home, not a home salon, but to someone's home, and getting services, or having someone coming into their home, that they need to have that personal service permit license and to ask for it, and to ask for the requirements of the PSP and the limitation of the services that are supposed to be allowed. So that's kind of what we're directing towards consumers. And then for the licensees, re-educating them, because again, I think COVID hit. If this PSP had been implemented 4 years ago when it was started, I think we'd be in a different situation. I think today we only have,
15 licenses.
15. We were so prepared for overtime and catching up on everything to get hit with all these PSP records, and we only issued 15. At least we know the system's working for online, and you have to have a fingerprint check, so that's all working, so we're super happy about that. But we really think, and I think we talked about it before, that with COVID, it pushed a lot of people into their homes to do services, and now they're comfortable doing it. So we're trying to get the word out to get people out of their homes, doing it correctly, in a salon, or if you're a PSP, that's when you go to someone's home. But you really shouldn't have people coming into your home unless you have a licensed home salon. So those will be our directions for that outreach.
Do you think because I know we talked about this before, but do you think that the drawback is the fingerprinting portion of the?
I don't. I really think people are just very comfortable working from home. I mean, we're seeing it on Instagram excessively, and I just think that's what's happening in the industry, and if we can get a handle on that, we have some cases we're working on where we've had some harm, and hopefully we'll be able to have some press if that time comes, that we're able to take some discipline. We might be able to do a press release so that we can get the word out, that go back to your salon or do it correctly. I haven't had one person mention anything about the fingerprints in all my discussions, so.
That's good. I just wanted to know, because I know that, I mean, it's a catch-22, right? As a license, we
Right.
don't have to be fingerprinted, but
Yes.
for PSP, you do. And I understand why. I understand when you're going into someone's home, but
Right.
when you're having someone come into your home,
Right.
and most stylists who are licensed, who are doing it from their home, in the discussions, don't see the need to get
Right.
a PSP
Exactly.
because they're already a licensed stylist. So, okay.
Or maybe we could even increase home salon numbers, because there's a perfectly legitimate way to do a salon in your home. There's some great ones. So, hopefully through all of this, we can at least try to get people back on track.
And increasing the home salon numbers would also be an enticing way, because you save money. These rents nowadays have just become
Yeah.
astronomically ridiculous, and so they're going to go to their home, then let's just encourage them to let's do it the right
Right,
way. So I
right.
agree. Now we are open to public comment.
Jamie Schrabeck, Precision Nails again, PSP holder number 2. Wendy's not here to discuss how I got number 2 and not number 1, but that's okay. Thank you again for participating at these industry-wide events. I know sometimes pulling that off isn't the easiest thing to do, particularly with a newer event. And I was there for the newer event in Southern California, and it seemed like the entire session almost devolved into, which was a good thing, into more of a town hall format. So I'm thinking that that may be a format going forward that would be most useful for people to engage with. A campaign that's not mentioned here, that I see repeatedly posted through Twitter, I'm on Twitter a lot, is the Verifying a License campaign that the DCA does, and the BBC also piggybacks on that. And I have been saying this, when you pointed to that side of the room and said people have been around for a while, I've been around for a while too. I've been coming to these meetings for almost as long as Christy's been the executive officer. If you do not require licensees to advertise with their license name and their license number, what difference does it make? You as a consumer cannot find that information in the Breeze system, because people can advertise their business with a different name. They can be Acme Salon on their establishment license and advertise as Xanadu Spa. And a consumer looking up Xanadu Spa is not going to find Xanadu Spa in Breeze, even though that might be a licensed establishment, because there is no requirement that you advertise yourself as an individual licensee or your establishment as an establishment owner with the name that appears on the license. And I think that's a huge problem. This whole issue of working in an establishment versus having this PSP permit, which I have not used and probably will not use. I have it, but it's of no use to me, because the only people I would actually ever go out of my own salon to work on are people who would qualify for being incapacitated, which that language needs to be cleaned up. It has not ever been clarified whether just being hungover is an incapacitation, or having triplets is an incapacitation, that you cannot come into the salon because you can't find childcare or for whatever reason. So I would encourage the board to look at how all of these different pieces fit together so that we don't have these gaps. Thank you.
Anything else from the committee? We'll obviously continue to keep you updated on any of our events. Okay?
Agenda item, well, there's no 5, right? No, we're done, 5, 6? Okay. At this time, we'll open to public comments on any items not on the agenda. This is a reminder that the committee is not able to engage in conversations on any items not posted on the agenda, but we do welcome your comments. there any? None? Okay. Members, are there any recommendations for agenda items for our next meeting?
Other than what you've already given me.
I want to raise a question about the education part, about our website. So if we can talk about this, and I have this as a note. The search engine, the search function on our website, I feel like is not, I feel like can use a little bit of improvement when you're putting in keywords to look for something. Let me see, how can I say this? And I'll use sew-in for an example, because that's a legitimate question that's being asked in the African-American community. When you go into the website and you put in the word sew-in, there is nothing that is, there is probably 10 or 12 items that pop up. But when you go to click on it, it takes you to the entire 125 pages of the, what's the?
The laws and regs?
The logs and regs, yes. So it doesn't take you to that particular item. So like, if I put in sew-in and I tap it, I should be able to go to the options of the sew-in. It gives me all the laws and regs.
Okay.
So,
We will look at that.
Yes.
We don't maintain our own website, so we'll work with DCA to see what we can do.
I totally understand, but when you're going to do this PSP campaign and all this stuff, someone's going to go in there
Right.
to look just for that. And if it brings up laws and regs, you're going to lose them, right? Because I looked up the information for a particular reason, and I thought, oh, wow, this is taking me way too long to find this information. And actually, I never found it. I just happen to have an old email that I found it in, so.
Okay. We can put that on the agenda as well and bring it back to let you know what we find.
Okay. Anyone else? No? Should we adjourn the meeting? This meeting is now adjourned.